Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in. This is a screencast-o-matic recording and presentation for the part of the lesson on Africa's geography and climate. Before I begin, please let me encourage you to open up to the correct part of today's lesson and then scroll down to the correct section. And remember that you are to fill in the chart describing and defining characteristics and features of each region of Africa's geography. Please remember that you can replay any part of this presentation that you might need for detail and clarity later on. So let's go ahead and get started. Before we begin, it should be noted here that Africa is the second largest continent in the world. It is bounded by the Mediterranean Sea, the Red Sea, the Indian Ocean, and the Atlantic Ocean. It is divided in half almost equally by the equator. Africa's physical geography, environment and resources, and human geography can be considered separately. Africa has 8 major physical regions: the Sahara, the Sahel, the Ethiopian highlands, the savanna, the Swahili coast, the rainforest, the African Great Lakes, and southern Africa. Some of these regions cover large bands of the continent, such as the Sahara and the Sahel, while others are isolated areas such as the Ethiopian highlands and the Great Lakes. Each of these regions has unique animal and plant communities that we're going to focus on right now. The first here is the Sahara. The Sahara is the world's largest hot desert, covering 8.5 million square kilometers, or 3.3 million square miles, about the size of the South American country of Brazil. Defining Africa's northern bulge, the Sahara makes up 25% of the continent. The Sahara has a number of distinct physical features including ergs, regs, hamadas, and oases. Ergs, which cover 20% of the Sahara, are sand dunes that stretch for hundreds of kilometers at heights of more than 300 meters or 1,000 feet, and ergs cover most of Algeria and Libya and parts of Mali and Nigeria. Ergs can contain large quantities of salt, which is sold for industrial and food use. Regs are plains of sand and gravel that make up 70% of the Sahara, and the gravel can be black, red, or white, and regs are the remains of prehistoric seabeds and riverbeds, but are now nearly waterless. Hamadas are elevated plateaus of rock and stone that reach heights of 3,353 meters or 11,000 feet, and they include the Atlas Mountains, which stretch from southwestern Morocco to northeastern Tunisia, the Tibesti Mountains of southern Libya, and the northern Chad and Agar Mountains in southern Algeria. An oasis is a hub of water in the desert, often in the form of springs, wells, or irrigation systems, and about 75% of the Sahara's population lives in oases, which make up only 2,071 square kilometers, or 800 square miles of the desert's vast area. The Sahara's animal and plant communities have adapted to the region's extremely dry conditions. The kidneys of the jerboa, a type of rodent, produce highly concentrated urine that minimizes water loss. A dromedary camel conserves water by changing its body temperature so it doesn't sweat as the day gets hotter. The scorpion limits its activities to night, burrowing into the cooler sands beneath the surface during the day. The scorpion, a predator, also absorbs water from the flesh of its prey. Saharan plants survive thanks to the root systems that plunge as far as 24 meters, or 80 feet underground. In parts of the Sahara, plants cannot take root at all. In the southern Libyan desert, for instance, no greenery exists for more than 195 kilometers or 120 miles. Next up is the Sahel. The Sahel is a narrow band of semi-arid land that forms a transition zone between the Sahara to the north and the savannas in the south. It is made up of flat, barren plains that stretch roughly 5,400 kilometers or 3,300 miles across Africa from Senegal to Sudan. The Sahel contains the fertile delta of the Niger, one of Africa's longest rivers. Unfortunately, the Sahel's fertile land is rapidly becoming desert as a result of drought, deforestation, and intensive agriculture. This process is known as desertification. So the Sahel's animal communities are constantly scavenging for scarce water and vegetation resources. The Senegal gerbil, the most common mammal in the Sahel and measuring only a few centimeters, consumes as much as 10% of the Sahel's plants. The Sahel's green vegetation only emerges during the rainy season, but is often quickly harvested by farmers or consumed by animals, and baobabs are drought and fire-resistant trees with trunks that are often 15 meters or 50 feet wide, and as tall as 26 meters or 85 feet wide. Acacia, whose deep root systems are ideal for semi-arid climates, are among the most common trees found in the Sahel. Cram, a prickly grass, is the primary fodder for Sahel herds such as the zebu cattle. Next up is the Ethiopian highlands. The Ethiopian highlands began to rise 75 million years ago as magma from the Earth's mantle uplifted a broad dome of ancient rock. This dome was later split as Africa's continental crust pulled apart, creating the Great Rift Valley system. Today, this valley cuts through the Ethiopian highlands from the southwest to the northeast, and the Ethiopian highlands are home to 80% of Africa's tallest mountains. The highlands' craggy landscape is perfect for nimble animal species. Native species such as the Walia ibex, an endangered wild goat, and the Gelida baboon live in the ledges and rocky outposts of the Simien Mountains. The most emblematic highland species is probably the Ethiopian wolf, which is now on the brink of extinction. Important plant species native to the Ethiopian highlands include the Ethiopian rose, Africa's only native rose, and Ensanthe, a tall, thick, rubbery plant that is a close relative to the banana. Next up is the savanna. So savannas or grasslands cover almost half of Africa, more than 13 million square kilometers, 5 million square miles. These grasslands make up most of Central Africa, beginning south of the Sahara and the Sahel and ending north to the continents of the southern tip. Among Africa's many savanna regions, the Serengeti or Serengeti Plains is the most well known. The Serengeti is a vast, undulating plain that stretches 30,000 square kilometers or 11,583 square miles, from Kenya's Masai Mara Game Reserve to Tanzania's Serengeti National Park. The Serengeti is home to one of the continent's highest concentrations of large mammal species, including lions, hyenas, zebras, giraffes, and elephants. Each year, more than 1 million wildebeest travel in a circular migration, following seasonal rains across the Serengeti Plains. Their grazing and trampling of grass allows new grasses to grow, while their waste helps fertilize the soil. Next up is the Swahili Coast. So the Swahili Coast stretches about 1,610 kilometers or 1,000 miles along the Indian Ocean, from Somalia to Mozambique. The nearby coral reefs and barrier islands protect the coast from severe weather. There is not a lot of animal life on the sandy Swahili coast, and the golden-rumped elephant shrew, an insect-eating rodent with a long snout, is common. A small primitive species of primate known as the bush baby inhabits vegetated areas of the Swahili coast too. Bush babies, which have enormous eyes for hunting at night, feed primarily on insects, fruit, and leaves. These more vegetated areas are located along a narrow strip just inland from the coastal sands. Heavy cultivation has diminished the diversity of plant species in this interior area of the Swahili coast, and mangrove forests are the most common vegetation. Mangroves have exposed root systems, and this allows trees to absorb oxygen directly from the air as well as from the nutrient-poor soil. Next up is the rainforest. So, most of Africa's native rainforest has been destroyed by development, agriculture, and forestry. Today, 80% of Africa's rainforest is concentrated in Central Africa along the Congo River basin. Africa's rainforests have a rich variety of animal life, like a 6-kilometer, 4-mile patch could contain up to 400 bird species, 150 butterfly species, and 60 species of amphibians. Important mammals include African forest elephants, gorillas, the black colobus monkey, and the okapi, a donkey-like giraffe. The driver ant is one of Africa's most aggressive rainforest species. Driver ants move in columns up to 20 million across the rainforest floor, and they will eat anything from toxic millipedes to reptiles and small mammals. The African rainforest plant community is even more diverse, with an estimated 8,000 plant species documented. More than 1,100 of these species are endemic and are found nowhere else on Earth. In fact, only 10% of the plants in African rainforests have actually been identified. Next up is African Great Lakes. So the Great Lakes are located in 9 countries that surround the Great Rift Valley. As the African continent separated from Saudi Arabia, large deep cracks were created in the Earth's surface. These cracks were later filled with water. This geologic process created some of the largest and deepest lakes in the world. There are 7 major African Great Lakes: Lake Albert, Lake Edward, Lake Kivu, Lake Malawi, Lake Tanganyika, Lake Turkana, and Lake Victoria. Lake Victoria is the largest lake in all of Africa, and is the southern source of the Nile River and the longest river in the world. The African Great Lakes region has a diverse range of aquatic and terrestrial animal life. Fish include 45 kilogram or 100-pound Nile perch and the 2.5 centimeter 1-inch cichlid. Migrating savanna animals such as the wildebeest use the lakes as watering holes, and hippos and crocodiles call the region their home. The Great Lakes have about everything from rainforest to savanna plant communities. However, the invasive species like the water hyacinth and the papyrus have begun to take over the entire shorelines, endangering animals and plants altogether. And then finally, down here at the bottom, we have Southern Africa. The region of Southern Africa is dominated by the Kapval Craton, a shelf of bedrock that has more than 2.6 billion years old. Rocky features of Southern Africa include plateaus and mountains such as the Drakensberg Range, and Southern Africa is the epicenter of Africa's well-known reserves, which protect animal species such as lions, elephants, baboons, white rhinos, and Burchell's zebras. Other important animal species include the impala, a type of deer, and the springbok, a type of gazelle, that can spring several feet into the air to avoid predators. So Southern Africa's cave floor region is one of the richest areas for plants in the world. While the cave floor region covers less than 0.5% of Africa, it is home to nearly 20% of the continent's flora. the giant protea. South Africa's natural flower is found, or national flower is found in the Cape Floral region. So there you guys have it, a brief overview and synopsis, if you will, of Africa's diverse and eclectic geography. One thing to think about here is the relationship between environment and geography and, of course, the people. In fact, that is one of the 5 themes of geography that we went over earlier this year. Think about just how Africa's geography and climate has impacted the history, culture, and story of Africa's people. Because I think if you begin to approach the continent like that, you'll begin to see more about the reality that is Africa. Thank you very much for tuning in, and remember, you can replay any part of this presentation that you might need for later. And good luck in completing the rest of the lesson.